Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Eric. So let me ask you something. What if you could totally ditch the 9-to-5 grind, travel the world, and basically live a life of complete freedom on your own terms? I know it sounds a little like a fantasy, right? Well, that's exactly the promise of a book that absolutely turned our ideas about work upside down, Timothy Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. Today, we're going to break down its core idea, which is this. True freedom isn't about saving up for retirement way down the line. It's about designing your life right now.
You know that feeling, that Sunday night anxiety, the thought of the morning commute, the endless meetings, the sense that you're just trading away the best years of your life for a paycheck? We've been sold this concept called the deferred life plan, Grind it out for 40 years and then you'll finally get to relax and enjoy life. But what if that whole idea is a trap? What if the system itself is just broken?
So this slide really shows the two different paths that Ferriss talks about. On the left, you've got the defers. That's the traditional path most of us are taught. You sell your time, you climb the corporate ladder, and you hope you have enough left to retire when you're 65. But then, on the right, you have the new rich. See, their goal isn't to just pile up a massive bank account for the future. It's to create automated income streams that fund incredible life experiences right now. Instead of one big retirement at the end, think of it like a series of exciting mini-retirements scattered throughout your life.
So the big question is, how do you actually become one of these new rich? Well, Ferriss lays out a pretty clear 4-step blueprint that he calls the DEAL framework. And that's what we're going to walk through. We've got D for definition, which is all about redefining your goals. E for elimination, where you just get rid of all the useless work. A for automation, where you build your money-making machine. And finally, L for liberation. And that's the ultimate prize. Okay, first up is definition. And to be honest, this might be the hardest part of the whole process. Why? Because it forces you to unlearn pretty much everything society has taught you about what success looks like. This isn't about chasing a bigger and bigger salary. It's about figuring out what being rich actually means to you, personally.
Let's make this really clear with an example. So you have Akai. He's a high-flying executive pulling in $2 million a year. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? But, and this is a big but, he is chained to his desk for 80 hours a week. Then, over here, you have Xiaoyu. He's a freelancer. He earns about a quarter of what Akai makes, but here's the kicker. He only works 4 hours a week, basically just maintaining an online course he created. So I ask you, who is really winning at life here?
And this leads us to a really game-changing concept that Ferriss introduces: relative income. The idea is simple but powerful. Your absolute income, that big number on your paycheck, means almost nothing. The new rich, they measure wealth in two currencies: time and options. Do you have the freedom to do what you want whenever you want to do it? That is the true measure of wealth, not your salary.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do you turn it from some vague fantasy into a concrete plan? Ferriss gives us this brilliant exercise called dreamlining. It's basically a 3-step process. First, you get super specific. What do you really want to have, to be, or to do? Don't be shy. Then you do the math. What is the actual real-world monthly cost to live that life? And finally, you create an actionable plan to generate that exact amount of income.
Now here's the part of dreamlining that blows most people's minds. When you actually sit down and calculate the cost of your dreams, learning to salsa in Colombia or finally writing that novel from a cabin in the mountains, you realize it doesn't cost $1 million. In fact, it's often a surprisingly achievable number, something like, say, $5,000 a month. And all of a sudden, your goal isn't this vague, I want to get rich someday. It's, I need to earn $5,000 a month passively. That changes the entire game.
So, you've got your target number. The next question is, where on earth are you going to find the time to build this new life? That brings us to our second step, elimination. This is all about becoming absolutely ruthless with your time, and we're going to use 2 powerful principles to just cut out all the fluff.
The first principle is the famous 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. It basically says that for almost anything in life, 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. Seriously, think about your own job. Which 20% of your clients are bringing in 80% of the revenue? Which 20% of your daily tasks are actually creating 80% of your value? The whole goal here is to identify that critical 20% and be merciless about cutting out everything else. And the second tool for our time-saving arsenal is Parkinson's Law. I'm sure you've experienced this. If your boss gives you 2 weeks to finish a project, it's going to take you 2 weeks. But if they come to you in a panic and say, I need this by the end of the day, you somehow magically get it done. The task didn't change at all, just the deadline. This law just proves that we are masters of filling whatever time we're given.
So how do we actually use this to our advantage? Well, you start giving yourself impossibly short deadlines. You batch similar tasks together, like checking all your email in one 30-minute window, and then you're done for the day. And here's the really big one for our modern world. You go on a low-information diet. That means turning off the endless notifications, the news alerts, the constant chatter. You have to stop letting busyness pretend to be productivity.
Okay, so you've defined your dream life, and you've freed up a ton of time. Now for the really exciting part, automation. This is where we build the engine that's going to power your new life, an income stream that works for you even when you're sleeping or on a beach somewhere.
The central idea here is to build what Ferriss calls a muse. Now, this is not just another job or a side hustle. A muse is a business that is specifically designed from the ground up to generate automated cash flow. The key goal is for you to be the architect who designs the system, not the operator who has to show up and run it every single day.
So what does a really good muse look like? Well, it has a few key traits. It usually serves a very specific niche market, something you know a lot about. It should sell a product that's really easy to automate. Think an ebook, an online course, or a simple physical product. And most critically, the entire system has to be designed so that you are not the bottleneck. It has to be able to run without your constant input.
And the secret sauce that makes all of this work is delegation through outsourcing. This means using virtual assistants, or VAs, to handle things like customer service, shipping, social media, you name it. It really requires a huge mental shift. You have to get away from thinking, oh, it's just faster if I do it myself, and move towards understanding that to be truly free, you must design systems that other people can run for you.
And all of that brings us to the final and most exhilarating step of the framework, liberation. This is it. This is the payoff. This is where you finally cash in on all that freedom you've created and escape the constraints of a traditional job. One of the most powerful tools for the newly liberated is a concept called geographical arbitrage. It's actually a really simple idea. What if you earn that $5,000 a month in a strong currency, like US dollars, but you choose to live in a beautiful, low-cost city in, say, Thailand or Portugal, where your rent is only $500? All of a sudden, your purchasing power goes through the roof. You're not just living anymore, you're living like a king, for a fraction of what it would cost back home.
So, let's just quickly bring it all together and recap the DEAL framework. First, definition. You redefine what wealth means to you and use dreamlining to make a concrete plan. Then, elimination. You use the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law to claw back your time. Next, automation. You build a muse and you delegate absolutely everything you can. And finally, liberation. You use that newfound freedom to live anywhere and anytime you want.
And, this really is the single most important takeaway from the entire book. Your life is not something that just happens to you. It's not a script you have to follow. It is a design project. You are the architect, and you get to choose the blueprint. You don't have to accept the default 9-to-5 model if you don't want to.
So I'll just leave you with that question on the screen. What kind of life are you going to design? Look, the point of the book isn't literally to work only 4 hours a week. It's about building a life of freedom by focusing on being effective, not just being busy. And you don't have to do everything all at once. Just start small. Maybe this week, just try applying that 80-20 rule to your to-do list and see what happens. This book is absolutely jam-packed with practical advice, and I really recommend you read it for yourself. We've dropped a link down in the description. If you found this breakdown helpful, it would mean a lot if you hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives like this. And hey, let us know in the comments if there's another book you'd like us to tackle. Thanks for watching. I'm Eric, and I'll see you in the next one.